Forum, so I'll go ahead and gavel the management meeting into work. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, the next item is approval of the September 13th Management Committee minutes. Are there any corrections or additions?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Our first non-consent business item on the agenda is item number 2023-218, General Banking Custody of P-Card RFP Award. Mr. Mark Thompson from Treasury. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm Mark Thompson, the Director of Treasury, and I have with me Leah. You want to introduce yourself too?
Sure. Good afternoon. Leah Elfuli, Enterprise Equity Senior Manager at the Equity Implementation Unit in the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity.
Forgive me one moment here, please. So we are here to present business item 2023-218, General Banking Custody and P-Card Services, Master Contract 22P382. And we have a little presentation we'd like to do along with this business item. The proposed action, first of all, is that the Metropolitan Council approve the regional administrator to award and execute contracts 22P 328A through D, which will provide the council with general banking, custody, and purchasing card services in an amount not to exceed $770,000, and that is over a 5-year period. We expect all 4 contracts to be 5-year contracts, structured with a 3-year initial term and 2 one-year extension options. So if you turn your attention to the screens, I'm going to run through a quick presentation here. I'll cover some of it, and Leah will also cover some to give you a little bit of background on this business item. There we go. We just have a few slides. A request for proposals was issued on February 1st of this year for 3 financial services: general banking, custodian, and purchasing card. And this is kind of a reminder slide to some of you who have seen this before. We presented this item, this concept, this RFP to this committee back in November of 22. So it's been going on for a while. Those of you who are newer might not have seen this yet, so that's why I wanted to kind of run through this and remind people of what we were doing. All of these services are administered by the Regional Administration Finance team. And proposers were invited to bid on 1, 2, or all 3 of these services. And you can see the amounts there that we're expecting for these contracts. I'll kind of walk through what each one of them covers. Our general banking is exactly what it sounds like. It's our 9 bank accounts that manage banking council-wide. There's a number of different products. There's about $3 billion of activity that goes through these accounts, and that's what general banking is covering. Custodian is, we're required by statute to have a third-party custodian who safekeeps and processes and reports on our investment portfolios. And purchasing card is cards that are used for low-cost purchases council-wide, so we have a contract for that also. So this time around, like these 3 services have been solicited together historically, because it's typical that banks are the ones who bid on all 3 of these. So we did that again, but we did make some changes this time, which I want to tell you about. And some of you will remember we talked about these back in November. We changed really the structure of our general banking, and I'll kind of show you that quickly. And we also changed how we engaged all the proposers across all 3 categories on equity. And Leah will touch on that in a moment. So we heard from this committee last November that the desire to, I'm going to jump to the next slide, the desire to look for ways to include more banks, make our banking services available to more banks, because typically we had one large bank who was getting our contracts, and we wanted to try to look for ways to structure it differently so we give more banks of all sizes more opportunities to bid. So we did some brainstorming, and we came up with a concept of breaking up our banking services into some smaller pieces, and that was discussed with this committee back in November. So this is the first time we've tried that, and like I said, typically in the past it's been one large bundle, and we knew we'd still need a large bank to handle our very large main accounts that do huge volumes of transactions and dollars. But we found some ways to break off some of our smaller, more standalone accounts, and put those in separate subgroups, we called it, in the general banking portion of this, to give more banks more opportunity, right? So some smaller pieces that maybe some smaller banks or mid-sized banks could bid on. So that was done. That was something new this time that we'd never tried before. And to kind of prove that concept out, we held an information session where we invited a number of smaller banks to attend and hear about this new proposal, new structure, give us their feedback. We were interested to see if they even wanted to bid on it or would. And we told them about some of our OEEO initiatives, and we kind of gauged their interest, and that went really well. And we had 11 banks attend that. They were very appreciative of us including them and trying to create opportunities for them. 5 of those 11 ended up submitting proposals. So a little under half of those submitted, and then the piece that Lila will discuss too, we also, which was new this time, included an equity questionnaire that we required all banks across all those 3 categories to fill out and respond to, and those were included as part of the evaluation in the qualifications section of the evaluation of the criteria you see at the bottom here. So overall, we had 11 responses, 11 proposals across the 3 products. We evaluated these with 4 panels. We had a panel for each category and a separate panel for the questionnaire. You can see on this slide it talks about the panel members came from all over the council, kind of council-wide, including the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. All the panels reached consensus at meetings in May, June, and July. And like I said, you can see the criteria listed here. They were evaluated on quality, qualifications, experience, and price, and the questionnaire was part of the qualifications area. Next, I'm just going to kind of show you quickly how we broke the banking accounts out, just as a reminder. On the left is how we traditionally structured our RFPs for banking, where we have our 9 bank accounts. We group them all. In this slide, it's called Group A, which is all of our banking accounts, except for 1, which is put in Group B here for the St. Paul Transit Store. There's a transit store in the Skyway, as you know, and that has its own separate account that we've always kept separate in the past. But on the right side, the new accounts is how we structured it this time. We broke out into different subgroups. Subgroup A1 is the council's really large main bank accounts that all flow together every day and handle tens of thousands of transactions a month, and tens of millions of dollars, sometimes more. So those are our heavy accounts. Subgroup A2 is our family affordable housing checking and savings accounts. Those are some smaller standalone accounts that we thought we could break off and give more banks opportunity. Those average, they're small, $75,000 or so per account. Subgroup A3 is a HUD account, which averages about $6 to $7 million a month. Not a lot of activity, but we thought we could break that off, and maybe some banks would have interest because that's kind of has some special requirements and just operates on its own too. So, and then lastly, we kept the St. Paul Transit Store as its own. They have one single bank account that they use, so we kept that as a separate one too. That's, keeps a smaller balance of 150,000 or so also. So that's just kind of reminding you, those of you who've seen this, and telling the new members that kind of how we broke that out and into these subgroups to try to create more opportunities. The RFP allowed banks to bid on any combination of those subgroups, 1, 2, 3, or all of them. And I'll tell you about the results after I turn it over to Leah.
Mr. Chair?
Good.
Yeah, please, if you don't mind a question.
Sure.
Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I like this. I like what we're hearing. I look forward to hearing Ms. Oakley's remarks as well. But I just, to me, when I look at the subgroups, they're rational, right? They kind of make sense. But I'm just wondering if you could say a few things about how you created the subgroups, how you classified things within each subgroup.
You're talking about why did we break it out this way,
exactly.
this manner? Mr. Chair, Councilmember, we knew that the subgroup A, those are all accounts that roll into each other. They all roll into the main operating account every day, so they work together. We have to keep those together. So that's those 5 accounts in subgroup A1. Those are really large accounts that use a ton of high-tech services that we needed a big bank to handle. But we made it available to everybody. But those really work together every day. So we basically broke out the other 3 groups basically by function. So we put all the family housing in subgroup 2, the HUD in A3, and the transit store in A4. Those were the only other ones that were kind of standalone and weren't working with other accounts on a daily basis that were left.
Oh, thanks. And Mr. Chair, I'm guessing this isn't a question, that as Mrs. Cooley presents, there could be, I'm just wondering if there's a feeling that this categorization will allow for more access. And I'm guessing that's what you're going to present on. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good.
I'll turn it over to Lila to talk about the next slide.
All right, so I'm gonna talk about OEO's involvement. So earlier in the year, maybe even towards the end of last year, we were having conversations about the anti-racist economic trust commitment that we made as a council. And the work that we're doing with the Center for Economic Inclusion. And through that work, we really wanted to commit to not only embedding equity in our investments, but to also ensure or intentionally choose banks that are also committing to equity. And so, of course, the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity has multiple units. Our small business unit was involved probably in the earlier sessions, and Mark can speak more about that. But in those earlier sessions, I sat in on all of the panel evaluations, developed the financial questionnaire, and then later on kind of helped have conversations around that. The financial questionnaire actually had about 20 questions, and we really tried to dig into each bank's equity work. We asked questions around leadership. We know that successful organizations use a top-down approach. We're really interested in their leadership team, their executive leadership team, and how they committed to equity, what their demographics are. We asked questions around policy and procedures, structure. We asked questions about their products, of course, wealth building products, not just products that were created to maybe mitigate some of the issues that folks may experience throughout their life. We asked about supplier diversity, we asked about foreclosure mitigation and home ownership. We also asked about their community involvement and the percentage of revenue they give to the community and to charitable causes. And so there was a lot of learning, and I'm grateful for the question, because one of the things that we discovered is the way the accounts were broken up may not have allowed for us to be able to really offer the opportunity for like maybe smaller banks or banks that are not as further along as the bigger banks, right? There are very, very particular requirements for the HUD account. It also, you have to think about risk, right? The folks who are stakeholders or direct recipients of the money in that account cannot afford for there to be delays of any kind. And if that bank is unable to provide the infrastructure or the technology needed, or staffing requirements for banking locations, then there could actually be some gaps and some risk. So that was something that we saw, and the smaller account that was for the transit station and the Skyway, number one important thing for that account is proximity, right? We have people who need to have access to change, we have staff that need to be safe, and so that bank could be XYZ bank, it doesn't matter what the bank is, they just need to be able to have access, easy access and quick access. So that was part of the learning. There were also additional learnings. The project team decided that they would create kind of a pass or fail to the financial questionnaire. That process, I think, also we were discussing whether or not, we want to give opportunity to smaller banks, but smaller banks don't necessarily have the structure internally to be able to do what the bigger banks do around equity. So that process, I think, we will need to evaluate. We do need to go back and look into how to restructure the accounts. We also need to engage banks much earlier. Just like other small businesses, the banks need to be engaged. We need to help them build capacity. We need to be out there and connected with them, and we have to create these ongoing relationships even with the banks. So those are some of our learnings. There's a lot of learning. One additional recommendation, and we talked about this yesterday, was that we can't wait till 5 years to create a plan. Our plan needs to start like right now. We need to talk about what we do now, so that 5 years from now, when we're ready to put this out again, we have a plan in place. We've looked into it, we figured out what actually works, we know what the banks can do, we've had these connections, and so 5 years we have built a portfolio, I guess, in the community of banks that can actually bid, and we're able to give this opportunity to other banks.
We have a question from Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's almost more of a comment. So I was on council when we did this 5 years ago, and we tried doing some of this work and getting some of this equity information, and even the big banks were like, no, we're not doing that. And so we, just to see that the industry is at least changed enough that you can engage, because these were the questions we were asking and could not get answers from. The financial institutions were just like, no, you need us. So, and really wouldn't answer it. And I do appreciate also breaking it out into, bringing in community banks and things like that. Just can't, they're not in the same level to compete for some of those big things. So it's really nice to see it broken out in different levels. But I'm really glad to hear this forward progress, because this was definitely where the council was trying to go, but I think we were ahead of the curve with some of it. And so I'm glad they started listening.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the information and for the work on this, and to thank Councilmember Barber and our predecessors here for kind of launching this. And this is encouraging. We'll see what the results are, and we'll do better. We'll do better next time. And we have some of the tools to do it. And I just want to kind of lifting up what Councilmember Barber was saying, and just to note that I suspect the council has a role in changing the environment, and this is what we can do with our resources. And so I really commend you and the whole team for doing it. So yeah, thanks.
I had one question about the questionnaire. Is there a way we can see some of the questions, or what were asked? I was just curious.
Yeah, Chair, yes, absolutely. We can certainly, I think, share the questionnaire. I don't know if we can follow up and send that out, but yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to share that.
Well, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll continue on. I'll follow up on some of the things Lila said, but we'd like to, I'll walk you through some of the results and some of the whys and, oops, there we go. So let me walk you through what happened was with each category. We had eight proposals for the banking services. 5 of those, like I mentioned earlier, 5 came from what we've classified as smaller community banks. And 3 came from what you'd call the large banks. So it was an interesting mix. Again, you know, I think this was the first time we've really tried to engage and increase the access for these community banks. So I think, like Lila said, we're learning. We're learning what their capabilities are. They're learning what our expectations are. You know, I think we've certainly, by this engagement, you know, increased engagement with them and maybe removed some of the barriers that they thought they had, or it's a learning experience. So I think, you know, I think it's positive. The steps we've been taking are positive, and we'll certainly keep that engagement going and look for ways to, like as Lila mentioned, increase the access for the smaller banks. A little bit more information on the proposals we received. Like I mentioned, 3 were large banks. That A1 category I showed you with the largest accounts, 4 banks bid on that. 3 were what you call the very large banks, and 1 was more of a regional, locally based, larger bank. So what you think of as the small community banks, they just bid on those smaller pieces, the A2, A3, A4 subgroups. Kind of what we expected. With the panel, you know, getting back to kind of the reasons for the recommendation, the smaller banks, there's a variety of reasons that they weren't selected this time. You know, as Lila said, that some of them couldn't provide the services we needed for the accounts they bid on. The pricing wasn't always competitive. In some cases, they couldn't provide collateral that we needed according to statute. I mean, some of them we had some concerns about their ability to transfer funds timely. Some of them had delays that wouldn't work for us. And I think Lila mentioned the HUD account has some very specific requirements, and that was difficult for some to understand, or they hadn't dealt with it before. So there was a number of reasons. Those are reasons we need to work on in the future and try to figure out what we could make easier for them and make them understand those things. So the panel is recommending Wells Fargo for subgroups A1, A2, and A3, you know, based on their comprehensive set of products and services that they offered, their strong sales team, and they were the best value, the best pricing. Their proposal was 9% cheaper than our current contracts, so that was a value they showed. And as Lila mentioned, with a panel recommended U.S. Bank for the subgroup A4, which is the Skyway transit store, and that selection was based strictly on location and the need for the employees to have a bank close. So that's the results of the banking. I'll move on to the custody. We had 4 proposals for custody. These were the panel's recommending Principal Custody Solutions, which is the current provider. They had a solid combination of staff experience and the technical capabilities that we needed, and they also had the lowest cost, 60% lower than our current contracts, so that was a very good value there. Purchasing card, there was 8 proposals. The panel's recommending Bank of America, which is again the current provider. And Bank of America's proposal was comprehensive and demonstrated excellent qualifications and the experience required. Also had the highest rebate percentage. You know, P cards work on a rebate. We don't actually have a cost, so they rebate us a percentage of our spend, and they had the highest rebate schedule, which is 23% better than our current rebate schedule. So next, I thought I'd touch a little bit on some lessons learned. I know Lila mentioned a little bit about this too, but you know, things necessarily didn't go the way some of us hoped for the community banks, but I think, as we mentioned, we've had a lot of positives in this process and a lot of learning. Next time, I think there's some things we certainly do differently. We have to decide on uses for the questionnaire, the best uses. You know, this was an experiment on how we should evaluate that, and evaluating a big bank against a small bank isn't always easy because of just their ability to have different equity programs. Same for the services. You know, we're lumping some of these smaller community banks into an evaluation with big banks, which is tough. So I think we need to look at ways we can restructure maybe even further, make more opportunities. You know, there was not an MCUP goal on this, so we didn't have that aspect. So everybody was evaluated together under the same criteria. And I think maybe next time, you know, it was maybe a little confusing for some of the proposers because we had 3 categories of service, and then within banking we had 4 more. And we had the OEEO questionnaire, so we had a lot going on, and I might think about separating some of that out to make it more streamlined for the banks and for us. And so yeah, we've definitely, I think we've taken a lot of positive steps, but you know, we'll keep working on making this even better in the future. And even over the next 5-year period, as Lila mentioned, we'll continue to work on this and look for opportunities along the way to add more banks and keep it more accessible. So that concludes our comments on the business item. Happy to take more questions.
Thanks. Are there any questions or comments from committee members? Good.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks again for the report and the work. And you know, like you said, the results aren't what we had hoped to see, and we have more lead time now to possibly do better in the future. And I'm just remembering during my time on Minneapolis City Council, we had a huge interest in making our general banking contracts more accessible, and we took a couple of runs at it with sort of disappointing results. And what we finally did was sort of carved out a piece and said, okay, this piece is going to go to what we would call an MCUP here, so, or a minority or woman-owned enterprise. And then we were successful. It was a small amount compared to our general banking contracts. And so as we lead up, I'm not asking, unless you want to tell us what your opinion of that is right now, or as we have this now lead time, if we want to start, we as a council want to start considering carving out a piece of the banking and say, this will go to someone within these criteria. Just a thought. Thank you. Did you want to say something like that?
Go ahead.
Chair and council members, yes, I agree. I think that the only way we're going to be able to accomplish that is by being really intentional and figuring out on our end what we can carve out. And then also, you know, learning more about the banks. You know, I spent a number of years in the banking industry, so I have a little bit of idea of how things work internally on the other end, but we need to learn about what's possible for you know, the banks that don't have a lot of access or are trying to grow. It's essential that we're intentional and that we do carve out that. So yes, absolutely.
Thanks, appreciate that. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can I ask Councilmember Leah,
Yeah.
can I ask you a question about that
Yeah.
incident?
This was a long time ago, so,
Right.
yeah.
Do you know what, and I'm not looking for names, what
Yeah.
type, was it a bank?
It was a bank, it was a smaller
Very
minority
small
owned bank, our general bank here was Wells Fargo. And the scale, and don't quote me on any of these numbers, but of course the city of Minneapolis had billions, of dollars of banking, and I think we carved out, it was maybe 5 or maybe 15, but we did direct finance staff, you will, a contract with a financial institution in these parameters for that relatively small amount.
So it was a bank that was a qualified small business or?
I don't recall if they had qualified small business.
I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah, it was minority, and I can look a little more deeply into it, but it was a minority-owned bank that had actually, was sort of campaigning to become, into the mix. And the council had said for years, we wanted to do what we're trying to do here, and without success. And
If you're interested in my thoughts, so I think we need to figure out goals, right? And what, because in my mind as a Treasury director, I think about our CD program, and I think about trying to give business to a small bank. And how do we do both, or which one's better than the other? And I think we don't necessarily have a lot of banks that qualify or can qualify as an MCUB.
Right.
They're just not out there.
Right.
So that is a little difficult in
Right.
we're trying to figure that out, and then that's something we'll be working on, and then if our goal is really to get funding in the community, that we've got the CD program too, and there's I think for a bank, giving them a $75,000 or even a $6 million or 100, the smaller groups that we talked about, $150,000 deposit account. What does that mean to them versus we can give 8 or 9 small banks $1 or $2 or $3 million deposit in the CD program. That our goal there is to get money out to the community, and so I think there's what's better to concentrate on, I don't know, but.
And Mr. Chair, and I'm glad we're having this conversation now, and not in 3 or 4 years or something, but and I hear what you're saying, and just trying to remember, and this is like 15 years ago, I bet, or something, but there was very much a sense that the small carve-out that we did meant a lot to this financial institution's growth, right? And so we're kind of building up the environment, and I would just note that since we do have time to do this work in advance of the next award for general banking contracts, that I would suggest there's probably an ability to right size or carve out to what the environment can actually meet, right? And so I would just put that out there. We have time, I guess that's the best news. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I just want to commend the staff for being innovative and taking these suggestions and running with the great ideas. All small banks, or all big banks at one point were small banks, and the institutions change all the time. And Highway just merged with Spire, and so these credit unions and banks are always changing the landscape, buying each other out, merging. And so it'll be interesting to see what the landscape looks like in 5 years and how we can continue to engage with local banks. Councilmember Oscar.
Well, thank you, Jim. Just want to thank you for this presentation. I think this new list of breaking out the accounts, I think is good change. And we look forward what we aim for next couple of years, what might be 5 years. So I just want to thank you on this great list on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other final questions? Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Leah. Oh, do we, does someone wanna move the motion?
So,
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes. All right, our next item on the agenda is 2023-225JT, the Transit Rider Investment Program, Resolution 2023-19. We have Leah Harmer. Oh, we don't. Right.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. My name is Brian Funk. I'm the Deputy General Manager, Chief Operating Officer, presenting today on behalf of Leah Palmer as well as our General Manager. And so what we have before us is a business item 2023-225JT related to the Transit Rider Investment Program. Last week at the Committee of the Whole, council members heard an update from Ms. Palmer on the Transit Rider Investment Program. Another update, including these items, were presented earlier this week for Transportation Committee. And what we're seeking is that we move this forward, the council adopt a resolution to authorize the Transit Rider Investment Program in compliance with state statute, and that we establish through the council a policy that provides trip personnel their requirements as well as the administrative citation process. As noted last week, and again in the materials, is that the business item here is really ensuring that we comply with state law in establishment of this program. One key element decriminalizes the fare evasion penalties associated. And so as you can see on the resolution dated 2023-19, we are following through from that legislative requirement which provided the basic parameters for a new fine structure. As you might recall, the previous fines had been $180 and had been classified in a misdemeanor category. These more civil penalties start at the $35 level, which was specified, and top out at $100 over a rolling 12-month period. We believe that, that these policies, including the alternatives that are specified in that document, a more equitable approach to managing fare compliance on our system. And then the program policy, which is also attached, really highlights the implementation and accountability for the staff and for this program, ensuring that both the council receive regular updates, but that we follow through with the requirements of the statute, providing updates on a regular basis to the legislature. And so with that, being brief and respectful of the full agenda today, again, we are seeking that the council adopt a resolution to authorize this Transit Rider Investment Program as outlined in the attached resolution, as well as the program policy. Stand for any questions.
Any questions, comments from Councilmember Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to say again how wonderful I think this is, and I'm really excited to see us taking this step forward. I know it's an interim step to actually having the program fully on board for the personnel, but I think, you know, really taking this holistic approach to how we approach safety and security, but also customer service and satisfaction and all those other things on the transit system, and then is wonderful. And then the other thing is looking at the administrative citations. This is something we've been working on for so many years and trying to get this in place, and to see it coming together, and also not just with the citations and fine, but having the alternatives, because we do know that we serve a very socioeconomic diverse population, and that there are alternatives to the fines that can make it so for people who who are part of the TAP program or something like that, have other options. So I think it's really well thought out. So just thank you, and I'd like to move it.
Should I? Jay? Any questions or yes?
Second.
We'll go to Councilmember.
Oh, no, I wasn't requesting for, but just echo what Councilmember Barber said, and just commend you, Mr. Payne, and your staff on moving so quickly. The legislature told us we had to move quickly, and you did. And I think it's a great new day.
Any other questions, comments? There's been a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Brian. Next up, we have one information item. We have the strategic plan update, engagement and development unit. Ashanti, Payne, and Antonio Elias. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, council members. Thank you for having me. My name is Antonio Elias. I'm the manager for engagement and development unit with our Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. I'm here to provide you with an update of our 2023 work plan. But first, I do want to explain more in detail the work and the purpose of our unit before I go into the details of our work. The purpose of a unit is to develop, create, and implement programs, services, or tools that promote inclusive and equitable participation of businesses in the council's contracts, subcontracts, or objectives. And the best way that I can explain this is that we do our best to do this work and achieve this via three main channels. So the first one is communication and marketing, by creating a culturally and inclusive communication platform for all the communities served here at the council. Two is engagement and outreach, by connecting and assisting small businesses with opportunities to access our resources and supports they need to better compete, in this case for master contracts or subcontract with the council. And lastly, business development, providing training, education, one-on-one technical assistance, or any other support they may need to, again, self-sufficiency, but also better prep and compete for the contracts that we have here at the council. In some cases, also I do want to acknowledge the fact that even if we don't specifically provide a specific training, like let's say like OSHA, right? We do refer them to other state agencies or other institutions or companies that do that specific training. So again, we do our best to support the businesses with whatever needs they may need, even if within internally we don't provide that specific training or support. Officially, the engagement and development unit has been in existence per se for about 1.5 years. It was officially implemented last year during Q1 with one full-time employee, Mr. Tomas Bembrato, who has been leading a lot of that work last year. I was brought on board in October of last year, so soon to be 1 year. So currently we have 2 full-time employees, a manager, the consultant, Tomas Bembrato, and soon it's going to be 3 of us. Sweetie, who's going to start with us this Monday, and she's going to be leading a lot of that communications and marketing efforts, right? So Mr. Tomas Bembrato leads a lot of our business development. And obviously, I lead the day-to-day of the unit, but also the engagement and community outreach as well. So that's a little information background of our unit. Communication and marketing, so far what we have been in place, and this is just really highlights of our work. Monthly newsletters that are being sent to our MCUPs, promoting various opportunities, including trainings, events, contracts, anything that we believe that can benefit our small businesses, right? And again, that's generic because it can be a contract, it can be a training that is happening with the Department of Administration and Transportation. Again, anything that we think that can benefit our MCUPs specifically. And then 2, again, as I mentioned earlier in the last slide, we hired Sweetie Hashi to lead our communications and marketing efforts. She's going to be starting this Monday, October the 2nd. So we're going to be relying a lot on her expertise and skills to really lead that specific work, our communications and marketing efforts to better serve our community and obviously our businesses. And then again, just creating marketing materials. With the presentation, I did provide a couple flyers and stuff that we've been able to put together to share with the businesses, with the community. I do have a couple copies here in case you may want to see them. But also, most importantly, also translating a lot of that information to other languages. In this case, Spanish, Somali, and Mam. I've always said, we can't really go to a community-based organization or any other institution to ask for support or create authentic engagement if we're not bringing information that's corresponding to their communities and the people they serve, right? So again, we're trying our best to create a marketing efforts and communication efforts that tackles every single one of the communities that we serve here at the council, right? Next slide, community outreach and engagement. And please, as I'm sharing this information, you're more than welcome to stop me at any time and ask any comments, questions, and concerns you might have. So with our community outreach and engagement, as of this year, our unit has actively engaged both internally and externally, assisting the needs of our small businesses with the following events that we have here listed. The first one is the Department of Administration, the 25th Annual Setback Government Procurement Fair, the Construction Networking event that was sponsored by Hennepin County. This was during the summer, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The State Procurement Opportunity Fair, again sponsored by the Department of Administration. Number 6, the Hy-Vee Opportunity Inclusive Summit that was sponsored by Hy-Vee and the US Bank. Number 7, Twin Cities Startup Week, North Star, which is a nonprofit organization actually that is located in Lake Street. They do a lot of work around workforce development, but also small business development. Their founder, Mr. Teo, has been doing a lot of great work in the community. And that specific nonprofit was leading that Twin Cities Startup Week sponsorship with the city of Minneapolis as well about 2 weeks ago. So again, we were there, not the whole event, but at least for a couple hours to learn really what's going on out there in the community and better assist the needs of new entrepreneurs or businesses, right? And also, as you can see at the list, we try our best to, how to explain this, participate in different demographics and sectors. As you can see, the private, governmental, nonprofit that have, that serve different demographics and purposes. Number 8 is highlighted in red, the U of M Supplier Diversity Expo. That's not happening until 2 weeks from now, October 11 or 12, if I'm not mistaken. But it's in red because we're officially registered to attend. So again, our goal is to be there on that specific event. Business development meet and greets. So meet and greets is actually one of my favorite initiatives. It provides an excellent opportunity to connect, engage, and learn, and address the needs of our internal stakeholders, but also the businesses. So we facilitate the conversation, the connection between our certified small businesses and any potential contract opportunities with different units, business units, but also project managers, right? So the list that you have right here in front of you, 9, are the ones that we've been able to solidify up to today in September. The goal is to continue growing. I do envision perhaps having 2 or 3 more for the rest of the year. And also, if we go into the details, so for instance, the first one, Sambatech, that's a civil engineering company, right? Whereas number 9, On Demand Construction Services, owned by Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, that's construction, right? Number 6, Innovative HP Pro, that's owned by CEO Ms. Isha Moore, who started that company about 3 years ago. We did a meet and greet with her early this summer. And her product or her service is specifically around community engagement and business development. Long story short, what I'm trying to say is that we try our best to support small business, but also diversify, right, the needs in terms of Sambatech Civil Engineering. It's a little more established than number 9, On Demand Construction Services, or number 6, or even number 2, Spark Government Associates, that's owned by Mr. George. It's an IT cybersecurity company. So those are the ones that we have so far established this year. Business development continuum, the Mentor Protege program. So our unit manages and administers the Mentor Protege program for the council. The Minnesota Unified Certification Program, MNUCP, offers the Mentor Protege program to establish business partnerships between the prime contractors and, in this case, DBE specifically because it's a federal program. So the best way that I can explain it is that it's really a mentorship program between a prime firm, the larger company, and the smaller firm, in this case, the DBE. Those are the ones that we've been able to establish so far this year. Number 6 is highlighted because again, it's agreed early, but we're currently working on solidifying that agreement in paper as we're speaking right now. So our intent is to solidify that agreement in the next couple of weeks here. But again, 6 so far that we've been able to solidify, facilitate a conversation for a agreement between that prime firm and the small business. Continue with our business development initiatives. The EDU master contract, RFP number 23P043. So this is a contract that our team is managing. The objective of this contract is to develop a series of trainings and offer a business consultation to our small businesses with the whole idea to enhance their capacities and capabilities to prep them and compete for a master contract. And the services that we are specifically asking or requesting from this RFP are the following 5 that you can see right now. First one, construction safety training, how to estimate and bid, how to respond to an RFP, understand the process of change orders, and the 5th one, one-on-one technical assistance, or in this case, business consultation support. That RFP was closed on August the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. So currently we're reviewing the proposals that were submitted for this specific bid. Please.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Thanks. Thank you for this, and thanks for being willing to pause for questions. I'm just kind of interested in this, and actually I have kind of a more detailed question. Maybe I'll ask at the end back about the meet and greets. But on this, as you were talking about this and thinking, oh, this looks kind of like a master contract, and it never ceases to amaze me in the Venn diagram that is my life how much overlap there is. And so in my day job right now, we're negotiating a master contract with a public sector entity so we can move resources into the Native community in a quicker and more responsive way. And so is that what you're talking about here? We would find a vendor to establish a master contract so we could move funds more quickly?
Not necessarily. So, Mr. Chair, Councilmember, thank you for asking it, and to clarify that point. So basically what we're requesting is a vendor who can support us by establishing training on those specific 5 areas, right?
Okay.
And to even be more specific, I actually have a list here that, if you don't mind, I can share with you right now, that specifically states the topics that we want to have in the curriculum with the services that we're requesting, right?
Oh yeah, this is linked on the report too.
Exactly, right? So, so for instance, I'm not gonna read it, the whole document, right? So construction safety training, I was talking about OSHA training, we don't offer OSHA training, right? So having a vendor that can establish that and have and offer that OSHA training certification process, right? Bidding and estimating planning and framework, determining estimated costs. So those are some specific examples that we are specifically requesting out of this contract. So we're gonna select the vendor so the vendor can actually establish a curriculum in the training.
Thank you, that's clear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, council members, if I can expand, Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director, Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. The master contract is really to secure multiple vendors so that, yes, we can more efficiently and effectively deliver services based on that particular vendor's strengths in terms of services that they deliver.
Right.
So it will be more than one vendor selected through this process.
Thank you.
Any questions?
And just to also continue with what Mr. Ashanti Payne is saying right now, stated as well. That's true, but at the same time, a vendor can apply to 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 of the services that we're requesting as well. It depends if, in this case, if the vendor is qualified to actually do every single one of them. If not, as Mr. Ashanti Payne was stating right now, it can be more than actually one vendor.
Thank you.
22 data. This is just some highlighted data that I want to share with every single one of you. Again, highlighted high detail data that I want to share with you. Also, a lot of this work, as I said at the beginning, was led by Mr. Tomas Membratu, during the earlier 2022, and it was one full-time employee in that case. So with the business development, conducted 5 meet and greets to connect with NCUBs with business units. And the report that I just showed you right now, we are close to doubling that number. We have 9. I'm confident that we're gonna secure another 2 or 3 towards the end of the year. So again, confident and comfortable saying that we're gonna double already that number of 5 meet and greets from last year. When it comes to marketing communications, we continue with the quarterly newsletter. Now we actually do monthly, so we don't actually do it quarterly. We actually do a monthly newsletters that are being sent to our MCUBs because we have a little extra more support and help in that sense. The development of the marketing material that I was just explaining right now, the one pager of the EDU, the work that we do, OEU as well. So that did took some time there. So again, we're happy to have that information right now as well. When it comes to the engagement and outreach, last year we were able to solidify 2 mentor-protege relationships or mentorship agreements. This year, if you remember the list, we have 6 or 5 officially, soon to be 6, so we already tripled that number as well, right? When it comes to just other minor items, well, not minor, but co-leading those initiatives, but not necessarily leading those initiatives, supported the development of the equity lens tools, which is what Mr. Ashanti Payne is leading right now with the NCUB diverse spend plan. So we had some participation in that at the beginning, and we'll continue to have that. The EDU strategic plan, as a brand new unit, we had to develop obviously the plan for the unit. Now we're excited to continue to implementing that work in the most successful way that we can. And the last slide that I have here for you is, as I'm explaining this, I think one thing perhaps that you all are asking, well, okay, how is this reflected in terms of dollar value for our small businesses, right? Because this is a great work, but at the end of the day, it also comes to supporting the development and self-sufficiency of businesses as well, right? So I just wanted to provide you one specific example. This is just one example, but I'm more than happy to provide you with a more tangible data afterwards as a follow-up. But in this example that I have in front of you is an agreement between, as part of the Mentor Protege program between Rice Lake Construction and USA Freight, who was certified by us as a DVE in May of 2019. As you can see in the example that I have, that relationship started back in 2019. We were able to solidify an agreement between the prime firm, in this case Rice Lake, and the DVE USA Freight. And after that, I'm proud to say that relationship went pretty well because as you can see, they work not only in 1, but 1, 2, 3, 4 contracts. That's just in the console. So if you add the total value of that, of all that work and contract, it's over $1 million, right? In just the last 2.5 years, 3 years, right? Again, that's just within the console, right? So I'm sure their success goes beyond that in terms of other work outside of the console, either private or public. But that's just one example that I can show you right now in terms of some of those direct results that our program, our services have had in small businesses. And I believe this is actually the last slide. This is just ongoing support that we do, not lead necessarily, but co-lead some of this work. One example, the first one, the Transit Service Integration Grant. So that's the grant that Senior Equity Manager Selena Martina is leading. So we supported that not only by being part of the panel, but also supporting some of the outreach and engagement for that specific grant. We're constantly on monthly collaboration meetings with council-wide outreach and engagement initiatives, other units, that do similar work that we do. The Small Business Equity Audit, Leah, our Senior Equity Enterprise Manager, led a lot of that work. We supported that specifically as well with the engagement and outreach. And then the setback monthly meetings, which is the best way that I can explain this. It's a coalition of different state agencies that meet on a monthly basis to share pretty much any supplier diversity information. So we are the official quote-unquote representative for the council for that specific coalition or group. And then the last but not least, any other support requested by other units or project managers as well. Specifically when it comes to meet and greets, we always try our best to meet their needs. And that should be the way it works here. But that should be the last slide. Any comments, questions, concerns, or anything I can answer at this moment?
Councilmember Racine.
I have a question on the outreach, engagement outreach. I think it's really amazing with the 30 newly certified DBs. Do you do that outreach in different parts of the metro, or do you ask everybody to come to the Met Council offices for that?
Number two would be the easiest way.
Pardon?
Number two would be the easiest way. But no, what,
I figured.
you know, Mr. Chair, council members, no, we pretty much go out there in the community, either with the events that I listed earlier, those events that we listed earlier, or really, sometimes it's just informally, right? So for instance, I think during the summer, Mr. Ashanti, Payne and I met with MIDA, Metropolitan Economic Development Association, with their Director of Supply and Diversity, Mr. Robert Harper, to really, discuss how we can support each other, what type of services they have that we offer, and vice versa, right? Latino Economic Development Center with Mr. Rico Duran earlier this year as well, to discuss that specifically. Mr. John Pacheco, who I know is part of this committee as well, he's the president of the Latino Chamber of Commerce. We're always in this conversation as well. With the Black Chamber as well, we reached out to them, I think it was like a month ago, but we haven't been able to solidify an official meeting to really discuss more in detail how we can support each other. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, no, we try to pretty much go out to the community and try the best to connect with businesses. At the worst case, we partner with other agencies or institutions that can be in an event or something like that, and then we can have some marketing material. They can say, you know what, Met Council has a specific contract. Reach out to Antonio or Tomas or anyone from OEO, and they'll explain the certification process or more information about a specific contract.
Thank you. No.
Thank you. That's a good question. Thank you.
Councilmember Burma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to comment on the mentor protege program. That's fascinating, and I love that you put a real example in there, because it's one of the things, even just like the banking discussion. We have all these big companies for going out for bids on these big construction projects, and how do we build this in and all, And this is not only doing that, but also transferring knowledge, and how do you work within this sort of structure and system. And so I think that's really a fascinating thing. So yeah, it's great.
Mr. Chair, Councilman, I'm with you 100% on that. I think, I always tell businesses, especially the ones that have just started about 2 or 3 years ago, or just recently new, it comes down to relationship building. Really, that's the most honest and transparent answer I can give to businesses. You can have the expertise, skill sets, and everything, but you also gotta have that networking relationship with prime firms, right?
Yep.
It will make your job way more easier, and my job as well easier, right? In terms of connecting all of the stakeholders and everyone for one specific contract or one specific initiative. So I'm with you 100% on your point.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Chair Lee, just quick, committee members, I want to tie this back to a discussion we had a few meetings ago about our work plan. You may recall we were going to take items that warranted a follow-up, so we have this scheduled for an annual update to the committee, and we'll come back with examples of impact. But if you want to see that in a different frequency, a different schedule, let us know, but that was the intent of the work plan, and change this, so that'll be coming out annually.
Thanks. My only comment is I want to thank the staff and commend the leadership of the department directors, SI and the RA, for resourcing these amazing initiatives and supporting the departments by hiring more staff to do this work. It's important. And so thanks to the staff and the leadership for this great program. Thank you, Mr. Elias. I think with that, Gail, you have a motion for me? Oh, okay. Actually, we'll push that out to the next meeting. So, thank you, Interim.
Thank you.
Because we don't have enough time for the for the labor strategy session, we'll push that to the next meeting, and because we have to get ready for the council meeting in about 15 minutes. And so with that, I adjourn this meeting.
Really good information.
I agree. This is.
That measure